All right, today we're diving into something pretty wild, a full-on confrontation between a country's Supreme Court and a textbook.
I know, it sounds a little dramatic, right? But this is the real question at the heart of the story. Can a simple school book, something for kids, actually threaten a nation's entire judiciary? I mean, really?
Well, believe it or not, the Supreme Court of India thinks so, and their answer was a loud, clear yes. So let's get into how this whole extraordinary situation even happened.
So let's start with the court's first move, and it was a big one. This wasn't just a polite suggestion or, a recommendation. No, this was a blanket and complete ban.
Get this. The Supreme Court ordered the immediate seizure of every single copy of a social science textbook meant for 8th graders. We're talking physical books, digital copies, everything. That is a truly unprecedented move against a national textbook.
Okay, so who are the main players in this showdown? Well, first you've got the Supreme Court, obviously. Then there's the NCERT, that's the national group responsible for making these textbooks. And finally, you have the Ministry of Education, which is kind of the NCERT's boss. So yeah, 3 huge national institutions headed straight for a collision.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The court didn't just ban the book. Oh no, they called it a deep-rooted conspiracy. So you have to ask, what on earth was in this book to make them say something like that?
Yeah, let's get right to it. What could possibly be written in a school book that would make the highest court in the entire country this angry?
I mean, the court's own words are just, wow. They didn't say, hey, we disagree with this teaching method. No, they went straight to calling it a deep-rooted conspiracy.
And, get this, a very, very calculated move to make the entire judiciary look corrupt. See, their argument was that the book was only highlighting a few isolated cases of alleged corruption, but it wasn't giving any of the bigger picture. So in their eyes, it was deliberately painting this really ugly, one-sided picture for kids. And for the court, the real problem was who was reading it. Kids. They saw it as a calculated attempt to plant this seed of distrust in the impressionable minds of children. The idea being that this bias would then spread, to their parents and then out into the rest of society.
Okay, so let's talk about how the court responded, because this wasn't your typical dry legal language. Not at all. This was fiery, it was personal. Frankly, they were furious.
Listen to this. This is from the Chief Justice of India himself, Surya Kant. He said, and I quote, "Heads must roll." I mean, wow. He wasn't messing around. He made it crystal clear he was going to see this through to the very end. And look, this wasn't just tough talk. The court immediately backed it up with action. They started contempt proceedings. That's basically when you get in serious trouble for disrespecting the court. They ordered a deeper probe to find out exactly who was responsible, and they sent out official notices demanding answers from the top dogs at the Education Ministry and the NCERT. And just to give you a sense of how deeply they felt this, the Chief Justice used this really powerful metaphor. He told the government's lawyer, they fired the gun and the judiciary is bleeding today. I mean, he saw this as a direct, damaging attack on the entire institution. So, with the court breathing fire like this, how do you think the government reacted? Well, their response was, let's just say it was fast and it was total.
The government's top lawyer, the Solicitor General, didn't even try to argue. No defense, nothing. He just came forward with a completely unconditional apology and said all of us are holding our heads in shame.
And this really shows you the power dynamic at play, right? On one side, you have the court saying heads must roll and launching a full-blown investigation. And on the other side, the government is offering an unconditional apology and promising that the people who did this will never get a job like that again. It's a pretty stark picture of the court flexing its muscle.
Okay, let's zoom out for a second and ask the big question. Why? Why did the court come down so hard on this? Because this was clearly about way more than just a few pages in a book.
You see, for the court, this wasn't about censorship. It was about survival. They truly believed that the story this textbook was telling was a threat to their very existence, because it attacked the one thing they need to function: trust. If people don't trust the courts, the whole system falls apart.
So what were they worried about specifically? Well, a few big things. They were worried it would undermine their authority, that it would hurt their independence in the long run, and of course that it would spread this bias against them through society. And it all boils down to this legal idea of scandalizing the institution, basically dragging its name through the mud. But, and this is a really important but, The court also went out of its way to say that this wasn't about shutting down all criticism. They made it clear they weren't trying to silence people who have legitimate complaints. They were trying to draw a very specific line in the sand.
And that really brings us to the final lingering question, doesn't it? Where is that line? When does fair criticism, the kind you need to keep institutions honest, cross over into something that's just trying to tear them down? That's the tough question this whole incredible story leaves us with.